Donald Trump has literally declared war on Europe and is specifically targeting Emmanuel Macron. We'll look at the harsh words he used and also the repercussions on the various markets. Before that, you simply have 48 hours left to apply to the club and get access to the exceptional live session I'll be hosting this Thursday at 9 p.m. as I do every week for the club. And there have been a lot of you applying, thank you for that. And let me remind you, this live session is reserved exclusively for the most motivated and also for members of the private club. It will be held in small groups with a maximum of about 20 people, and during this live session, we'll go over various things. First, my current strategy, why I'm shifting gears today, and what I'm actually doing. I'll also discuss my different entry and exit scenarios for the market, as well as the factors I'm closely monitoring that could tip the market one way or another. I'll also talk about the specific cryptocurrencies I'm buying and the ones I'm selling right now. We'll also discuss how to prepare for the coming weeks without getting caught out by the market. We'll also talk about the different technical signals to watch for, and you'll have the opportunity to ask me any questions you want. So if you're interested, fill out the application form right now. You'll find it in the comments and in the description. Unfortunately, there won't be enough spots for everyone. And if you are selected, a member of my team will contact you very quickly. It's coming up very soon. It's this Thursday at 9 p.m. So as usual, I'm putting all the info in the description as well, pinned in the comments. Now that we've said that, as I was telling you, Donald Trump is absolutely not backing down in this matter. On Greenland, and despite the European response, his rhetoric is becoming even more direct, because in his latest statement, he claims that the world is not safe without total US control over Greenland. And he goes even further by specifying that since he didn't receive the Nobel Peace Prize, they now no longer feel, I quote him, obliged to think only in terms of peace. So in other words, he is openly embracing a much more aggressive strategy, which he presents as necessary for global security. And with this kind of presidential statement, it's not just a publicity stunt here, because it further fuels a climate of geopolitical uncertainty that always weighs on the markets. So what impact does this have on the markets? The confidence index, the sentiment index, the fear and greed index was hovering around the neutral zone, let me remind you, at about 44, which indicated a market that was catching its breath after weeks of fragility. But in just 24 hours, that hope has just been swept away. And yes, the index has dropped back down to 32, so that's a pretty sharp fall into fear territory. And this kind of sudden movement clearly shows that confidence remains extremely fragile. And the market had started, let me remind you, to look ahead to the return of what we call risk appetite. So a return to risky investments, but the current geopolitical and macroeconomic uncertainties have been enough to push investors right back into the zone of caution. In fact, if we analyze things a bit, we see that gold is surging towards $4,750, while Bitcoin is correcting and has just broken down past the well-known $91,000 mark. And it's starting to get dangerously close to the 90,000 zone. So for the past few days, the price has been battling, as I mentioned, around this pivotal area that served both as a psychological support, I'm talking about the $90,000, and as a technical line of defense. And the fact that it has dropped below confirms that selling pressure is taking over again in the short term. And I want to emphasize, in the short term. But now the whole point, the issue is to know and see whether this break will hold or if it's just, an excess of volatility. And for that, we'll find out in the coming days. Or if there's also some news that comes out again tonight, we could see more volatility or even extreme volatility, which could also emerge sooner than expected. And we're still very much in the wake of Donald Trump's announcements, with the geopolitical climate already generally tense to begin with. And we have Zelensky, who sums up the situation perfectly. I'm explaining this to you because according to him, according to this article, according to this interview, Ukraine is preparing for a massive and imminent Russian attack, with air defenses being urgently reorganized. And there is extreme vigilance, maximum alertness around the infrastructures, specifically what we call energy infrastructures. And here, this is just one piece of the puzzle, because at the moment, as I'm speaking to you, Europe has to deal with an open trade crisis with the United States. We just talked about it, but also with fragile economic growth. There are also internal political tensions that are building up, and this isn't an isolated risk. It's a piling up of pressure on a global scale. And so for quite a few months now, the markets had relegated the war in Ukraine to the background, like just background noise in the end. But this kind of warning is a reminder of how quickly Europe's risk profile can shift. And often it's when investors are least prepared. And of course, the drop in the crypto market doesn't just affect the crypto market, but also all risk markets as a whole, which are being hit by the current tensions. And the American markets are clearly struggling to digest the commercial escalation we're currently facing. And US stock futures are plunging again, heading for another drop and hitting new session lows. We're talking about the Nasdaq 100 dropping by 1.6%, while the Dow Jones is approaching a loss of 700 points for the day. So this reaction is completely logical because in a climate of trade war, investors flee from risk. They anticipate an economic slowdown and move towards assets considered safer, like gold, which is once again breaking its all-time high, as I just showed you. And that's why, despite hitting an all-time high yesterday, it's coming back even stronger with a new all-time high afterwards. Only 24 hours. And as if that weren't enough, we have Donald Trump who keeps making explosive statements. And this time, it's France that's directly in his sights, especially Emmanuel Macron. Because after Macron's remarks where he said he wouldn't join the Board of Peace, Trump publicly mocked him by declaring that nobody wants him, nobody wants Emmanuel Macron. Then he added a threat. Without holding back here on the airport tarmac, it seems to me, and he said he could impose a 200% tariff on French wines and champagne if France adopts an attitude deemed hostile. So he is specifically targeting France, he is specifically targeting Macron, and he is simply threatening with tariffs that are absolutely enormous. And so we remain in a climate of growing diplomatic tension where every statement, every threat adds another layer of uncertainty for the markets. So it's a detail that may seem anecdotal in the context of an expanding trade war, but this kind of statement sends a clear message, sends a significant message regarding Trump, especially to Europe, especially to Emmanuel Macron. And he also seems ready to use the tariff weapon against any country, ally or not, to get what he wants. By the way, he also added, I have the information right here. A private message from Emmanuel Macron. So, in fact, even everything that's private becomes public with Donald Trump. Tell me, what do you think about it? In the comments, do you think Donald Trump is exaggerating? Is he going too far here by specifically targeting France and Europe? Is he also going too far with the possible acquisition of Greenland? I also saw some AI-generated images showing all the European representatives around a table at the White House and the map of the United States. I should find it for you. Maybe I'll look for it here for you. Trump Map USA. That way it'll be much clearer. That image where you can see everything. So he posted it, I believe, on his own social network. So you see the real Donald Trump. All the French representatives are there with Emmanuel Macron, right here. And here you can clearly see the detailed map where, in fact, the United States is prominently displayed. Would come to conquer Greenland, Canada, and Venezuela all at once. And that's a direct threat to quite a few countries. But as I was saying, to understand why this trade war is worrying the market so much, all you need, let me find it for you. The information is right here. Just a moment, this is live, so that's normal, yes. You just have to look at the latest data published today because in reality, the tariffs hardly penalize foreign countries at all, but rather the Americans themselves. We'll look at that in detail. Because new research covering more than $4 billion in trade flows shows that foreign exporters absorb only 4% of the actual cost of tariffs, and that the remaining 96% of the total cost is ultimately covered by the individual consumers. It's paid by American companies through higher prices and much heavier import costs. In other words, contrary to what Trump has been repeating for months and months, it's not other countries that foot the bill, that pay the tariffs, but rather it's American households that end up paying. And in Europe, it's the exporters who mainly suffer from a drop in trade volume, but the economic impact is much heavier on the American side. And economists, by the way, are all in agreement. If tariffs keep rising, inflation in the United States will inevitably start climbing again. So, in a context where the market is already very jittery due to geopolitical tensions and also the desire to get indicators and a massive repositioning between risk on and risk off, this kind of data can and does add an extra layer of concern. And investors understand that behind every tariff increase, it's American purchasing power that erodes and therefore the macroeconomic momentum that weakens. And while precisely geopolitics are shaking the markets, there's another much more structural piece of news that has come through. Under the radar, even though it could change things permanently, the way we invest is about to change as the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, the largest stock exchange in the world, has just announced that it is preparing to switch to a 24/7 trading model thanks to the tokenization of stocks and fully on-chain settlements. So concretely, the New York Stock Exchange is building a platform that will allow the trading of tokenized stocks and ETFs funded with stablecoins and with instant settlements. So basically what crypto has always done with 24/7 availability and the ability to trade fractional tokens, Wall Street is now adopting it. And the most interesting part of all this is that nothing changes for the investor in terms of rights. We're still talking about real ownership, we're still talking about dividends, we're still talking about voting rights. And the only thing that changes is the infrastructure itself. So the New York Stock Exchange is even working with BNY Mellon and also Citigroup to move money and collateral directly on-chain. And so this clearly shows that it's not crypto trying to adapt to Wall Street, but rather Wall Street itself. It's Wall Street itself that is migrating onto crypto rails. So it's an adoption that is quiet but transformative. I wanted to talk to you about it in the daily update. Feel free to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think about this daily update. Is Donald Trump going too far? Is he right? What's the purpose behind all this? Are the trade tensions justified? And what do you think about the market? Feel free to apply for the club. You have 50 hours left. I'll put the link in the description and a member of my team will contact you. See you tomorrow for a new video. In any case, things are moving in the markets and there are changes in macroeconomics and geopolitics too. It's something I'm passionate about and that I want to share with you to pass on my passion to you. I hope the message got through that the passion is spreading, a good kind of contagion this time. See you soon. This was Julian. Take care. Ciao, ciao.